I read the Bible, but that's different to what I mean. Like, I'm talking about Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Shadow and Bone, definitely not that one. We're here to talk about The Hunger Games. This book I finished like early, like June, July-ish. It's taking me a while to actually do this video. Like, I mean, it took me 2 months to read the book, which is not great. What's the reason for this video, you may ask? Well, it is part of my motivation to actually get into reading books. You know, pitting the original text against the movie adaptation or the series adaptation. Since I'm a huge fan of film, I think it's the perfect motivation for this. In high school, I had to read The Hunger Games, but I didn't exactly read it. I wasn't the best at getting actually into the work that I had to do in high school, which was not great. Instead, what I did is I actually watched the movie and used some in-class discussion to give me like that little bit of like a incline into what happened in the book. Like when people talked about Peter losing his leg, I used that as a prime example, as well as I also used the knowledge from the movie with the ways that Katniss and Peter tried to... Did I get away with it? Not at all. I'm pretty sure it was worse than that overall English mark. Now, 6 years later, my cousin introduced me to Libby right on my birthday. It was on her birthday. What am I talking about? And that's what I did. I read the book and I found out something that I don't think anyone else has ever found out before, that the original text is better than the movie adaptation. To start us off, we got to look at the intro. I mean, it's so like, you wouldn't steal a car. And it is just so jarring and like so disgusting. This film as a whole is very much YA dystopian, like book to movie adaptation. And that is very frankly seen in like the you wouldn't steal a car type intro. Also gives off Madam Web vibes, which is not great. I mean, I guess that's what it was aiming for, but who cares? Madam Web's a terrible movie. Don't watch it unless you're watching it with a bunch of friends. The book is first person, while the movie is practically the exact same. You know, the only like times it steps out of it, I think, is when it really needs to. You know, certain things that can be described in a book, but has to be shown in a certain way to audiences. It was the best way to explain the Game Masters without it being like too much baby talk, too like force-fed into your mouth, into your eyes, I guess. Just like with this change, there were certain things that needed to be cut from the book to actually be influential and for it to work effectively. An example of that is Madge Undersea. She is a great character and I thought it was really special, her addition into the book, but it is not necessarily needed for the movie. With Madge being in there, it would have been kind of almost a drag on the overall story arc and also the flow of the film. With Madge, she gave Katniss the actual Mockingjay pin, while in the movie it is different and is being given through a vendor, marketer, it doesn't really matter. Just it's a different way of telling the same thing, and I think it is still effective nonetheless. Not as effective as the book, but you can't put that into the movie. Either time crunches or lack of driving the plot, or maybe even budget cuts. Things have to be cut out of a movie. I mean, you can't put this book, which is 454 pages, in a 220 long film. It's almost impossible. I mean, it is possible, but it would be horrendous and in like 5 times speed. Or it would just be like the Star Wars list and just really, really fast. What I'm saying is that it doesn't work, and things have to be cut out for a film to work properly. Though when things are taken out, sometimes it can be confusing and can be quite surprising and really like take something away from the book that made it so special. One big example of that, in my personal opinion, is the hovercrafts. Specifically, I'm talking about Rue's death. You know, I always imagined like Rue being taken up almost like Katniss at the end of Catching Fire. Spoilers for those that don't know. I mean, you've started this video and you're this far in. I'm guessing you would know that there'd be spoilers. This book came out in 2008. It's definitely spoilers. I don't care. Anyway, let's get back into it. The image of Rue dying and being taken up in all the flowers was just a really powerful image in my mind. I thought District 12 rioting was a good way in replacement of the bread. You know, being a certain dark ration grain that's only found in District 11, I really like how the rioting is a different way of that, because I feel like that just takes up too much time and would erupt the overall flow of the story. When I rewatched The Hunger Games, I was actually surprised by the lack of hovercrafts. And I really don't agree with the overall like elimination of that part of the story. I mean, maybe it was a budget cut, but I still think it is something that is so important to show how they're just kind of like almost animals being taken out. It's like you have a bunch of just hamsters and one's dead and you like just grab it out. It's like the claw from Toy Story. It like almost feels really inhuman. It's much better than just kind of leaving the bodies there, which is kind of the picture that we are given. But like I said, it's a budget cut, which I think matches up perfectly to the lacklusterness of the actual arena. Like in my mind, I thought it was big, huge scale, just like in Catching Fire. But in reality, it wasn't that. It was just like a lower budget movie. But that just makes me so excited to actually read Catching Fire. I haven't started yet, but I know it's going to be good. You'll probably get that video at the end of next year. Something that really reminded me of how messed up the overall books are was actually in the movie. When you're reading a book, you can kind of get really invested in the world and almost picture the characters at whatever age you want to in your mind. And I got to this point where I completely forgot that they were all teenagers besides Rue. So when I saw the boy from District 3, the one that disarmed the bombs, I realized, wow, they are young, and what is happening to them is really so brutal. Like, that made his death so much more impactful. I was like, this guy's just a kid. See, when putting up the book against a movie, not everything's going to be negative. It helped me put some things into perspective, you know? When you're looking at a film, it's just really a taster of the original text. You know how they say in making a film or making lore, you just see the tip of the iceberg. There's in fact so much meat underneath. The last big change I'm going to talk about is simply the overall flow of the film. A book is a book, and books tend to be slower, while a film is very much cut down to a certain time. Books go into so much more detail. You can't say in a movie how the place smells, how it feels when you're in the room, the presence that someone might bring into the room. You can do a fraction of that through the screen and through music, but you can't do the same vibe of someone walking into the room. And I think books do that so much better. As an example, the pages in that first part leading up to the games itself were really long and drawn out. Gives you a feel of the characters, of the world. Eventually, when Cinna dies, I'm sure I'm going to be absolutely gut-wrenched. Like, it's so important in the books on how the capital feels to Katniss and Peter. When they eat the meals, when they enter the place, how grand it is. When they truly step out in front of the huge crowds. To us as an audience, we can be like, okay, so that is a whole area of the world. But to us, it's like, this is a new planet when you read the book. It is completely different. You get invested in before they get to the capital. And then when they get to the capital, you're like, what the heck? Like, there's certain things in the pacing that definitely can't be in a film. I mean, the Hunger Games itself goes on for 18 days in the book. In the movie, it goes on for like 3. I don't know if that's exactly accurate, but it goes on for such a shorter amount of time. You know, it would be rushed and it would just be horrid on all parts. It wouldn't even feel like a good movie, let alone a book adaptation. A book can't be pinned against a movie's adaptation. I mean, they are two completely separate mediums. For TV shows, you can have an argument with shows such as Reacher, but truly you can't pin them against each other. While I was reading the book, I kept thinking, oh, this would be a great series, or, oh, this would be the perfect episode cut. I mean, you look at the chapters, it's done very well. But I don't think The Hunger Games should be made into another series. I really hope it doesn't get picked up or done something like what they're doing to Harry Potter. I genuinely think that the movie is separate to the book. They are two separate ways to tell a story, and I think both of them do a great job in that. I guess my conclusion or my ending to this comparison is that neither can be compared, that both are really great. Who am I kidding? The book is so much better. The next one is going to be about a book that was made into a film, which shouldn't have been made into a film, should have been made into a series instead. So stay tuned for that one.